Do away with park user fees.
Your one word to describe TV Guide is?
Filterish.
What?
Filterish? Filters out the bad stuff and gives you the good.
If you don't read TV Guide this week, you might be missing something.
It'll be cloudy tonight with a low in the teens, partly sunny tomorrow, high in the lower 30s. We'll be back with all the Iowa news at 6. Now to New York and Dan Rather.
Good evening. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. A star-studded group of international movers and shakers was in Moscow today to hear Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev speak. There had been widespread reports that he had some new arms control initiative to announce. He didn't. He did try to combine his general arms control offensive with his charm offensive, but this, his latest bid to be taken seriously and sincerely in the West, may have been blunted by his own KGB secret police. A full day after a top Soviet official said a Jewish dissident had been freed, the man still hasn't turned up and apparently remains in a KGB jail cell. CBS News correspondent Wyatt Andrews is in Moscow.
For Mikhail Gorbachev, it was an unusual speech, full of flowery language describing his thoughts about a nuclear-free world and the danger of Star Wars. As if he wanted to convince the world he means it when he says he wants no nuclear weapons.
After a nuclear war, there would be no problems. There would be no one to sit down at a tree stump or at a boulder, let alone a table for negotiations. A second Noah's Ark will not survive the nuclear deluge.
But Gorbachev was speaking to an unusual audience, a collection of 1,000 of the world's most influential writers, businessmen, and scientists, including former exiled physicist Andrei Sakharov. If Gorbachev was working to impress them, he succeeded.
But he didn't sound like a politician for 1 minute, which means he's either the best politician in the world or maybe he means it.
I think that I must say that my mood was one of encouragement. I also welcomed, as I have in the past, the absence of polemics.
The Gorbachev speech concludes a week of contradictions, a week that saw the release of scores of political dissidents, but the violent suppression of demonstrations on behalf of jailed Jewish dissident Joseph Begun. Those contradictions continue. Yesterday on the CBS News broadcast Face the Nation, Central Committee member Georgy Arbatov said Begun was free. Today, Begun's relatives said no prison official they contacted knew anything about Begun's release. Today, Gorbachev described the policy of openness, challenging the right of Westerners to doubt Soviet sincerity. We do not change, he said, to please the West.
Our successes and our mistakes are measured by us by socialist yardsticks and no others.
Gorbachev seemed to be fighting hard for the respect and the understanding of his powerful audience. In short, trying to earn from 1,000 influential private citizens what he has not yet earned from the Reagan administration. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, Moscow.
It had been reported for 2 days that he would, and the leader of the main Nicaraguan Contra Army resigned today as head of the rebel coalition. Adolfo Calero said he was stepping down for the sake of unity, but Calero will keep control of his own U.S.-backed army, and rebel sources say the power struggle within the Contra movement is far from over. Spokesmen for President Reagan have redoubled efforts to prevent Mr. Reagan from having to say anything publicly about his weapons for Khomeini deal, and they have become especially touchy when questions arise about where all the money missing from the deal went. Evidence grows that some of the money apparently went to friends of Oliver North, who operated a mystery ship. Doug Tennell has been looking into this.
The Panamanian registered freighter Area lies stuck in a Danish harbor today, trapped by ice and money problems flowing from voyages to free the hostages in Lebanon and deliver weapons to the Contras. CBS News has obtained documentation showing that the Area is legally owned by Albert Hakim, a mysterious California-based businessman wanted for questioning in connection with the Iran-Contra affair. Hakim and his business partner Richard Secord shared a secret Swiss account with Oliver North at this Geneva bank. They bought the Area in April 1986 for one reason: to play a central role in the Reagan administration's arms for hostages deals. Hakim hired this man to run the ship, Norwegian shipper Tom Parlow, who would only show us his back because he said he fears reprisals for being part of a CIA operation.
Did your ship ever deliver arms to Iran?
Area did never.
ever deliver any arms to Iran.
Did it try?
It tried to deliver in November last year.
But the area seemed cursed by bad luck and failure. May 28, 1986, while Robert McFarlane and Oliver North were in this Tehran hotel to secure the release of Americans in Lebanon, Hakim ordered the area off the coast of Beirut to wait for hostages who never appeared. July 1986, Hakim dispatched the area to pick up a load of weapons in Szczecin, Poland, and then on towards Central America. But that shipment was mysteriously recalled on the high seas. It was put on board a second ship and then delivered to the United States. According to maritime sources here, 350 tons of Soviet-made machine guns, ammunition, and hand grenades were discharged in Wilmington, North Carolina. But perhaps the most remarkable voyage of the area was its last. While Oliver North was taking the Fifth Amendment in Washington, Albert Hakim had secretly ordered the ship to wait off the coast of Iran to pick up 2 Soviet tanks, T-72s captured from Iraq and sought after by Western military analysts who want to study its secret construction. But the T-72 deal also fell through. The area returned to Denmark last month, its hull empty, its crew broke, and for reasons that remain a mystery, its secret missions for America a total failure. Doug Tennell, CBS News, Korsør, Denmark.
A generation after Nazi Colonel Adolf Eichmann was captured, convicted, and hanged by Israel, another accused Nazi murderer went on trial today in Jerusalem. Bob Simon is there.
The 66-year-old retired auto worker from Ohio shouted "Good morning" in Hebrew and "Hello, Cleveland" in English. He seemed relaxed at Israel's first war crimes trial in a quarter century. If Adolf Eichmann was the Holocaust's bureaucrat, John Demjanjuk is accused of being a killer.
I think the thing that stands out was his desire to commit atrocities, the satisfaction that he got out of committing horrible deeds.
The defense does not deny that a Ukrainian nicknamed Ivan the Terrible committed atrocities at the death camp Treblinka. It does deny that Demjanjuk is that man. Mistaken identity, it claims. Demjanjuk was somewhere else.
This man, John Demjanjuk, has never been in any death camp.
There were people watching the trial today who disagreed. There was no problem identifying Adolf Eichmann, and that trial mesmerized this nation. But Israel has changed more than most countries in the last 25 years. 4 wars, new territories, an entirely new demography. Most Israelis now trace their origins to countries far from Central Europe, which is where the Holocaust happened. And there are fewer certainties now about Demjanjuk, about anything.
I don't know. I don't know anything about him. Sorry.
I really want to see him dead if he's guilty.
He may not be guilty. It's a long time. Memories fade, don't they?
But the Israelis who remember feel that they have to remind others again. Shalom Rosenfeld covered the Eichmann trial.
Somewhere, somehow, if it happened once, it can happen again. And if we are not warning enough the world against it, the Western civilization, ourselves, who knows how it could end.
The trial is expected to last from 4 to 6 months. It will be carried live by Israeli radio. It will not be easy. Bob Simon, CBS News, Jerusalem.
There are 600,000 Vietnamese refugees in this country. Mostly they are known for their intelligence, hard work, and what good Americans they have become. But there are also some criminals, many of them young men who spent years in refugee camps waiting to get into America. They formed gangs in the camps, gangs that stayed together as they spread from coast to coast in this country. Anthony Mason reports.
Den Vo, a Vietnamese immigrant, owns a small store in downtown Boston. But these days, Den Vo is worried about more than just his business. He's afraid for his life. This man, 23-year-old Mai Song, is accused of heading a gang of Vietnamese youths who have chosen Den Vo as one of their targets for extortion.
He opened his jacket and I saw and got, if you call police, I will kill you.
But in spite of the death threats, Den Vo did call the police, filed a complaint, and has agreed to testify. But every day his store is now watched by a patrol car. A sign that Boston police believe the gang has emerged as an organized force, which must be confronted.
We have over 100 names of individuals that are somehow linked to the various segments of the gang, and the list is growing, unfortunately.
And growing in other cities as well. A rash of recent cases in Asian communities has convinced many police departments that Vietnamese gangs have formed an informal network to commit crimes all over the country.
We've identified contact people in Philadelphia, New York, Boston, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Falls Church, Virginia.
In December, 33-year-old Son Van Vu was found shot in the head in a motel room in Hollywood, California. Police have linked Vu to this gang of Boston teenagers, recently arrested for robbing a jewelry store in Lowell, Massachusetts. And police here in Toronto, Canada, believe the same gang may be connected to the robbery of this jewelry store this past December. A surveillance camera recorded the crime. In a scenario similar to those played out in other cities, two Vietnamese youths enter the store separately and appear not to know each other. Suddenly, from inside his coat, one pulls a gun. The second man pulls a hammer and smashes the display case. In slow motion now, the gunman struggles with the owner. A shot is fired, breaking the window, but not injuring anyone. The owner tries to go for help, but he's dragged back inside. Grabbing the bag of jewelry, the robbers are out the door only 16 seconds after pulling their weapons.
They do the holdups here and leave the area, and then police investigations look for local persons being responsible when in fact they're hundreds of miles away.
Asian communities in major cities make perfect hiding places. Their languages are alien to most police officers, and many Asians won't report crimes, partly out of fear, partly because of pride.
Some don't like to report the police because they are ashamed for the whole community.
Ashamed.
Yeah.
That's why Den Vo's testimony has become so important.
He came in my store and asked for $100.
He's willing to risk his life, even though they might kill him because of testifying, but he's willing to go out and sacrifice his life in order for the Vietnamese community to be respected throughout.
But for now, the Vietnamese community is watching Den Vo.
If anything should ever happen to Den Vo, I don't know when we'll get another victim to come and testify in court against these kids again.
And Boston police know they'll need similar acts of courage if they're going to keep an ethnic gang from growing into a new mob. Anthony Mason, CBS News, Boston.
Still to come on tonight's CBS Evening News, what union leaders see as a workplace threat to thousands of women and women athletes. You'll see how a teenage girl has Iowa farm families forgetting the hard times.
When Mazda asked me if I'd like to take some hot laps in one of their RX-7 race cars, they didn't have to ask twice. Whew, I'm telling you, nothing pours out power as smoothly as a rotary engine. It makes for a great race car and a great sports car. This RX-7 also has one of the most advanced suspension systems in the world. It loves to be driven hard. Check it out. But don't blame me if you start hating what you're driving now.
Want to take it out again, Mr. Garner?
Like I said, you don't have to ask me twice.
If you were stranded in the wilderness, what's the one medicine you'd want along? 1,000 doctors were asked which medicine they would choose. Tylenol, extra strength Tylenol, Advil, or Bayer. Doctors chose Bayer more than any other. Nearly 2-to-1 over extra strength Tylenol, more than 8-to-1 over Advil. Doctors chose Bayer. Shouldn't you ask your doctor why? Bayer, the wonder drug that works wonders.
At the AFL-CIO convention today in Florida, the Communications Workers of America had a message for the computer industry. Joining some 40 workers and women's rights groups, the union said, and I quote, "The time is now to act before a serious health problem gets worse." But CBS News correspondent Ned Potter reports that health problem may become a women's rights problem.
In the clean rooms of the semiconductor industry, there are some very complicated chemicals, and maybe for the first time, evidence they are doing harm. A study at Digital Equipment Corporation found that 39% of pregnant workers in one kind of clean room had suffered miscarriages. That compared to a national average of 20%. It's not a large study, but it's causing a wave of concern because it's the only evidence high-tech has.
This was the first epidemiologic study of health status and reproductive health in the semiconductor industry.
For the most part, the industry took a wait-and-see attitude. But then one giant, AT&T, decided to transfer all pregnant women from its clean rooms, creating surprise because the study at Digital didn't even establish that the chemicals were causing the miscarriages.
It's a precautionary measure, really. protecting hopefully the health and the safety of our workers.
But now the story turns from safety to women's rights. Some groups worry that companies, instead of removing the chemicals, may actually exclude women from those higher-paying jobs in the clean rooms. Jean Patterson of California became pregnant, and her employer told her to transfer.
And I was kind of caught because I didn't want to take a pay cut, and yet I didn't know what else I could do.
Experts fear that if the chemicals are affecting pregnancies, who's to say they aren't harming non-pregnant women, or men for that matter?
I think just removing of pregnant women may be just, too little too late.
Doctors say the miscarriage study should put the entire industry on alert. Because technology moves so quickly, new toxins may come into use long before anyone can figure out what hazards they pose. Ned Potter, CBS News, Boston.
The National Science Foundation has announced a major advance that could result in dramatically cheaper electricity. The breakthrough is a compound that becomes a superconductor of electricity when cooled by liquid nitrogen. This is 10 times cheaper, 20 times more efficient, and much less volatile than methods used up to now. Practical uses may eventually include transmitting electricity great distances with no loss of power, much more accurate medical scanners for diagnosis, and a new system for running whole trains with magnetic power.
When your child is sick, you have enough to worry about. That's why this BD digital fever thermometer is so helpful. It gives you accurate readings 4 times faster than the old glass kind. 4 times faster and safer, too. No glass to break. A beep signal tells you when to read it, and the big bold numbers are easy to see. From BD, the thermometer brand doctors use most. BD takes the worry out of taking temperatures.
Next time, get a Haworth furniture system. They're built. Next time, get a Haworth furniture system. They're built. Next time, get a Haworth furniture system. They're built.
Tomorrow is Election Day in the Republic of Ireland. Polls show Prime Minister Garret Fitzgerald running behind his opponent, former Prime Minister Charles Haughey. The main issue is the economy, which is staggering so badly that many more Irish are trying to come to this country. Tom Fenton reports.
The ranks of players are thinning in the ancient Irish sport of hurling, which looks like hockey played with a baseball on a football field. Athletes who travel west to play Irish-American teams are defecting like Russian ballet dancers. They are joining the ranks of the estimated 100,000 illegal Irish immigrants who have flocked to America in the past 3 years. The surest sign of bad times is the line that forms each day at the American Embassy in Dublin for visitor and student visas. Many of the applicants intend to take a one-way trip.
They've just become so depressed and so disillusioned that they're just hopping on the nearest plane or the nearest boat, which will take them anywhere they have some chance of getting work.
With a per capita foreign debt 3 times higher than Mexico, Ireland is being called the sick man of Europe. The economy is in such a mess that people are wondering why anyone would want to win this election. Ireland's brief boom of the 1970s was fueled by a binge of government borrowing. But the foreign companies that were lured here with subsidies and tax breaks are leaving. The government has imposed the highest taxes in Europe in an effort to pay the huge debt, and prices have soared. A gallon of gas costs $4. One of the busiest places in Dublin is a seedy building housing the welfare office. Unemployment has reached 20%. The young are the hardest hit. If they find work at all, it is often far from the trade in which they were trained.
I'm a qualified fitter welder. Now I sell gents' clothes.
There is little optimism in Ireland about this election.
I think the country's in a mess at the moment, and it doesn't matter what government gets in. For the future of the little boys here, or any children, there's no future for them whatsoever.
For those who were born in the boom times of the 70s, the only bright future may be a future abroad. It looks as if Ireland's leading export will once again be its children. Tom Fenton, CBS News, Dublin.
When your child gets a cold or an allergy, you get a lot of advice.
Give him some garlic.
You gotta sweat out a cold.
A lot of advice.
Vaporize him.
But the best advice is what doctors have said millions of times. Take Dimetapp. Dimetapp in non-prescription formulas brings proven relief. So take the advice of doctors and pharmacists.
The garlic worked.
And take Dimetapp. The best advice you can take.
Lipton tea you made, decaffeinated just for me.
Lipton, you made decaffeinated delicious, just for me.
Hey, Lipton, you made decaffeinated, just for me.
Great tasting Lipton decaffeinated tea. Real Lipton tea, delicious and decaffeinated, just for you.
Lipton tea you made, decaffeinated just for us.
Under the heading, It Gets More Difficult to Preserve the Great American Wildlife, the Federal Wildlife Refuge in Nevada is a place of wonder and mystery. But tonight, as CBS News correspondent John Blackstone reports, the mystery is what is causing all the death.
With spring migration just now beginning, hundreds of thousands of birds are arriving at the Carson Sink, a huge lake in the midst of the Nevada desert. It's an important resting place in the migratory route called the Pacific Flyway. Each spring, it is an oasis of abundant life. But mysteriously this year, it has become abundant with death. The fish were first to die, at least 3 million. Then the birds began to perish, ducks and great white pelicans, geese, herons, egrets.
We're worried since we don't know what's going on out there right now.
Well, it's unusual that both birds and fish are dying at the same time.
It is as if this strategic, isolated corner of the ecosystem is collapsing. If the collapse continues into the height of the migratory season, seabirds and shorebirds along the entire Pacific coast could be threatened. The biologists are looking for all the usual suspects, industrial pollutants, agricultural chemicals, and some natural disease has been found in a few birds. It's possible that separate acts of man and nature have combined to create a unique slaughter. The western states are in the midst of a dry winter, and the Carson Sink is shrinking. There are rivers close by, but the water they carry goes to farms and distant cities. The shrinking lake may have become too salty for freshwater fish. It may be concentrating pollutants that are poisoning the birds. Biologists say they have at most a few weeks to solve the mystery before the Carson Sink becomes a deadly stop in the migration north. John Blackstone, CBS News, Carson Sink, Nevada.
I just got dentures, but with Fixodent, I don't get the dentures come a loose blues.
Fixodent and forget it.
Denture wearers can't eat everything, but with Fixodent, I can feast more than just my eyes.
Fixodent and forget it. Fixodent helps fix loose spots for a strong hold that lasts longer than any leading cream.
A woman in my position can't worry about hold.
Use Fixodent and forget it.
Watch this. I talk, and my words appear on the screen. This is an experimental IBM computer system. It recognizes thousands of words, even words that sound the same. Please write to Mrs. Wright right now. Another innovation from IBM and the most advanced voice recognition system of its kind, period.
When you need it most, you can get extra strength relief from acid indigestion with extra strength Riopan Plus. In lab tests, it neutralizes twice the acid as regular Maalox or Mylanta. It's that strong. You can also get extra strength relief from heartburn with extra strength Riopan Plus. Ounce for ounce, it neutralizes twice the acid as regular Maalox or Mylanta. It's that strong. Extra strength Riopan Plus. Regular strength, too.
As regular viewers of this broadcast well know, few things are guaranteed in these surprising times, but CBS News correspondent Frank Courier reports it's almost certain that history will be made in one small Iowa town tonight.
Down long country roads near Ventura, Iowa, the only talk in town till recently was hard times, bankrupt farmers and their auctions. But listen now to what they're saying.
I don't think this is ever going to happen again.
I think it's really special.
It's a time that will live forever in the hearts and minds of these people.
Tonight in a small-town gym, Lynn Lorenzen, a 6'2" farm girl, likely will break the all-time career scoring record for high school basketball players in America. 6,250 points, a mark set nearly 20 years ago by another Iowan.
The number one thing about this squad is they're able to score points and score them in a hurry.
And with her undefeated Vikings, Lynn scores the most, averaging 65 points per game. Her individual total one night was 100.
I'm overwhelmed by it. I am. Sometimes it just brings tears to my eyes, all of the things that I have been a part of.
The youngest in a basketball family of 8, all over 6 feet, Lynn practiced early and often in the barn, and from her parents learned to cope with success.
We sort of mentioned to her, don't believe everything people say and write about you.
In school, Lynn's an honors student. In concert, a French horn player. And her rising star on the home court has brought fame to a town without fortune. Ventura, Iowa, population 600.
It's very depressing around here for these farmers. A lot of them are not making it. And, well, I'll tell you, we get together at these basketball games and afterwards, and we forget about our farming and all our troubles.
She has averaged 2 points every minute of every single game played.
Lynn is now among America's most sought-after high school players, closely scouted by head coaches from big universities.
Our crowd, when they start cheering, I look up at Mom, and I cannot believe, actually, that it's all over pretty soon. There's a smile because I can look to the future, but there's tears because it's about to end in Ventura High. And it's such a small gym, a small community, that it's really special.
For scorekeepers, the payoff comes tonight when Lynn jump shoots her 39th point to break the record. But for a college-bound farm girl, it's not the points, but stand-up cheers and sideline hugs that matter most, she says. The moments of a lifetime on her hometown court. Frank Courier, CBS News, Ventura, Iowa.
And that's the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather, thank you for joining us. Good night.
If you've been waiting for some really big news in 4x4s, your waiting's over. Mazda's got one fantastic new 4x4. And Mazda's loaded up SE5 is also priced close to other people's stripped down 4x4s. I'll tell you, it's the best handling 4x4 I've ever driven. And I've been driving 4x4s ever since well, never mind.
Think your cereal is nutritious? Put down your spoon and listen. Because a leading consumer magazine ranked 59 cold cereals on fiber, protein, sugar, sodium, and fat. And of those 59 cereals, they found 3 varieties in Nabisco shredded wheat topped the ratings, providing plenty of fiber and protein, no sugar, and very little sodium or fat. So before you pick up your spoon, pick up the leading cereal that topped the ratings, Nabisco shredded wheat.
Nabisco. You've probably heard about pain relievers that sound new. They're not new to hospitals. For years, hospitals have known about ibuprofen, aspirin, and Tylenol products. And today, their overwhelming choice, Tylenol. In fact, last year, they dispensed Tylenol 10 times more than the leading aspirin and ibuprofen brands combined. If hospitals use Tylenol most, shouldn't your choice be Tylenol too? Tylenol, the pain reliever hospitals use most.
America's children in worse shape than ever, but are phys ed programs to blame? Dr. Bob Arnott takes a close look tomorrow on the CBS Morning News.
This is CBS.
The TV8 News, live at 6, next.
But when the cold wind blows and it starts to snow, a tough new Ford is the way to go. They're fun to drive, and they work hard too, plus there's great Ford deals just for you. Now get 3.9% financing plus up to $600 cash back on Ford Tempos, Escorts, and Mustangs. Buy this Escort and get automatic transmission plus AM/FM stereo free, or save $700 on Ford's car for the 80s and beyond. Ford Taurus. Because your Ford dealer knows that it's time to show that you're the boss, not the snow. Hurry, 3.9% ends soon. See your local Ford dealer today.